Hi guys, JP from FSiPanel. On that video, I will show you some new features of FSiPanel 2020 MSFS and P3D, and we will try to fly the latest training scenario takeoff training decision in Geneva. So we will see what kind of failure we get. I will choose severe, and we will see what happens. Bear in mind that when we are flying a single pilot 737, which is supposed to be a multi-crew, sometimes it's not that easy. So take your time if you fly this kind of scenario, and you will be fine. There is no need to rush. Just fly the aircraft first, make sure it's flyable, and then do whatever checklist are required. All right, before I forget, please subscribe to the channel. That will help me do more and more video. And without waiting, let's jump in FSiPanel first, so I show you what are the new features. Okay, here we are in FSiPanel. So let me show you what are the new things. If you go to Setup and Scenario on the Advanced Edition, you get your scenario right there as you're used to. Today we are going to fly the Takeoff Training Geneva. So if you click on it, you will get Takeoff Training in Geneva with a summary of what's going to happen. What is new is you get the cruising altitude. So any scenario you choose now, if you see flight level 240, if you have any aircraft that is able to fly to cruise at flight level 240, you can use it for the scenario. So you could fly that scenario with the Edwin 330, with the fly-by-wire A320, or whatever aircraft you want, as long as it can fly that high. Keep in mind that you will have to do the cockpit preparation by yourself. If one of the scenarios shows here default scenario, you will have a warning down here. Then it will be as well your responsibility to do the flight plans and to set up your cockpit. New thing as well, if you choose one of the training scenario, you can see now we have a SimBrief flight plan button right there. So I'm going to fly this flight, which is Takeoff Training in Geneva. It's a Geneva to Zurich flight where we're going to have some problem at or below V1. So now if you click on SimBrief flight plan, this is what's going to happen. It opens your SimBrief on your default browser, and FSiPanel will fill up everything you need for that flight. So then on the Phoenix, you could directly import that into the AFB. And if you have a 737 PMDG or fly-by-wire, you could import the flight plan into the MCDU as well. So that will save you a lot of time. And if you look, generate flight, the weight is as per the aircraft, and we have the routing and the alternate as per the flight plan. So that's something to have in mind. Now you have your flight plan ready right there that match our figures. So if you need to change anything, you can do it from there, and you have all the information, and then therefore, the whole routing will be imported right away into your aircraft. Perfect. So that's one thing that is new on that version of FSiPanel. Next thing is this auto tuning. Maybe you saw it on the previous video. That's allowing the FSiPanel to set the next frequency on the standby. So if you don't get the right frequency, then FSiPanel will set it anyway on your standby frequency, and you just have to transfer it as the active frequency. That's up to you whether you want to use it or not. So that's something. And another thing which is important as well is if you use the only voice options right there. So it means you will not get this blue ATC window at the same time as people speak, as ATC speaks. Then FSiPanel will acknowledge that he received your transmission by doing a small radio background noise. So you will see that we will use it today, and you will see that in action. So let's choose here primary sound driver, so it's okay with the video, and we should be fine. Let me check that. Yep, we hear it, so that should be fine. Okay, so what I will do now, I will import the scenario. So I want to fly Takeoff Training in Geneva. I have already the flight plan. Lesson plan, I know it, so I'm not going to read it. If you want to fly without looking at the lesson plan, go ahead. If you don't want to get any tip, but you might miss some very important information. Here you will have a summary where you have to set your aircraft. This is the weather preset that you have to choose for that flight. weather is not that very good in Geneva on that training scenario. And then you get basically quite some information as always for the scenario. All right, so we are not going to go through that. I'm just going to download now the scenario. The scenario is imported in my database. Now if I go to the position and I go training scenario, I can see that it is right there. So I will be able to launch it. So let's go in the sim just to make sure everything is fine here. So I just loaded the 737 in Geneva. As you can see, we have no figures, no flight plan, nothing. And we are on this runway 22, which is rainy today. And I will just now start the scenario and you will see that FSiPanel will program everything for you. Start training. We are back in the simulator. I will choose a severe malfunctions. Here, by the way, this is something I wanted to show you as well. If you want to integrate to have light, moderate, and severe malfunctions, and FSiPanel will pick one of these three type of malfunctions, go ahead and select all of them. If you only want light, you can go for light. If you only want moderate, you can go moderate. Basically, it's up to you. I will go severe and validate. Now, if we go in our aircraft, FSiPanel will set everything for us. So you will see the routing will be set. You will see the mode will be set for you. And now FSiPanel is setting the correct weight for the aircraft as per the lesson plan. And once everything is ready, we will be able to start our training scenario. So we just wait, as always. Do not touch anything, just wait until FSiPanel tells you that you can start your training scenario. Here we are on runway 22, ready for departure. As you can see, FSiPanel has loaded everything. And we have chosen a severe failure today. So we will just recap what happened in case of engine failure, as there is a lot of chance we get some engine malfunctions with severe setup. So we will do no actions below 400 feet, except positive rate, bring the gear up, cancel any warning, any light. By 400 feet, we will select a whole mode. In that case, we will go runway heading. So I will just keep LNAV, make sure we go straight ahead, identify the failure. So we check what kind of failure we have. Is it a severe malfunction, or is it just an engine flame out, or is it something else? We will start the APU and we will inform ATC. In Geneva, here we have a special one engine out procedure, as we have terrain all around the place, especially north of the airport. So here what we have to do is 6 miles straight ahead and then a left turn towards Saint-Pré. So we have here a fix that has been set by FSiPanel. 6 miles from Geneva VOR, then we turn left and we go to Saint-Pré and join the hold at 7,000 feet. So that's what we will do, and we will accelerate the aircraft at around 1,000 feet AGL. All right, so let's hope for the best. Let's go for takeoff. We call Geneva on 187 and we'll tell them we are ready for departure. All right, frequency 1187. Yes, let's go ahead. Geneva Tower, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, ready for departure.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, wind 170 at 15, runway 22, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 22, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, we are ready for departure. Let's go. 40% N1. Stable. N1 Toga, set takeoff thrust. Thrust set. Checked. Throttle hold. Rotate.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Enough. Engine failure, check. Applying right rudder. Now we need a bit more thrust here on the PMDG. On the real aircraft, you can just go with your initial thrust. Here we need more thrust, as you can see, otherwise the aircraft is not flying properly. Even with full rudder here, I have to add a lot of ailerons. All right, so let's continue on the track and hope for the best. So nothing below 400 feet. We post 400 feet. We are in LNAV. That's fine. Identify the failure. I can see that N1 and N2 are not turning. So it's a severe malfunctions. Start the APU and inform ATC. So, all right, let's start by having the aircraft under control. So I will trim it to the right toward the good engine. I use my rudder trim. I want to see my skid indicator as close as possible to a perfect flight. It's getting better now.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, copied. For further instructions, contact Geneva departure 119.53. See you later.
Roger, 11953, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, so let's do what we said. We start the APU. If ATC is informed, let's continue our flight. We pass 1,000 feet, so we'll go level change. We'll bug up. I will try to engage the autopilot. And we have command LNAV MCP speed. Reduce a little bit the thrust. We are looking for 6 miles Geneva right there. So heading mode, we are turning to the left towards Saint-Pré. So initial heading, just to initiate the left turn, and we contact departure 11953. Departure hello, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee on the left turn to Saint-Pré.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, bonjour, identified, continue runway track, passing 6 DME Geneva, turn left to Saint-Pré VOR.
Roger, we're turning left to Saint-Pré VOR, ready, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, flaps 1. Speed check, flaps up. All right, let's do the memory items for engine fire, server separation, or damage. So we have everything done. So if auto throttle, if engaged, disengage. So it's disengage. Affected thrust lever, confirm, close. That's engine number 1. And we are continuing the left turn towards Saint-Pré, otherwise we are going straight into the mountain. So this is why Geneva, you have to be very careful and reduce a little bit the thrust, as we have too much thrust here. Max continuous is what we are looking at, and we will set it in a couple of seconds. All right, let's put Saint-Pré right there. Sierra Papa Romeo. Execute. LNAV. LNAV is engaged. All right, let's continue. So engine number 1 is confirmed. Here I don't have a joystick that allows me to close it by only the left one, so sorry about that. Imagine we close it, then the engine start lever number 1 is confirmed, cut off, and as we had damage, we need to push the button and pull the fire handle. All right, so memory items are completed. Aircraft is flying nicely toward Saint-Pré. We have flaps up speed, flaps are up. Now we can set continuous thrust. So when you do that, you just select continuous here. You have the indication what continuous should be, so 96.8. So now we can add the thrust to match that number. All right, so continuous thrust is set. Now the aircraft is trimmed, so I will release all pressure on the pedals, on my rudder pedal, and I'm looking now at my skid indicator to have as much as possible a nice flight here that we are coordinated. Now it doesn't look too bad, and I was using, of course, the rudder trim, as you can see, only 3 or 4 units. On the real aircraft on takeoff roll you need around 5 to 7, and once you're in cruise 3 to 4. So here it's okay, it's working nicely, and we are flying to Saint-Pré. Perfect, so let's continue the QRH for that malfunction.
Back to Geneva, continue Saint-Pré 7,000 feet and join the hold as published.
Roger, continue to Saint-Pré 7,000 feet and join the hold as published. Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, Saint-Pré and hold, that's what we are doing. Okay, what's happening to the aircraft here? I haven't pushed anything, and suddenly she's drifting. No problem, she's coming back on track. All right, so let's continue the checklist. We said, so we didn't have any fire. Isolation valve close. So that's that valve here. So we need to close it. This is to prevent any possible smoke if you have an engine fire to go from the other side going to the pack and in the cabin, so that's why we close it. Then pack switch affected side, so number 1, pack to the left, off. Then APU bleed off, that's already off as per the after takeoff checklist. And finally, is the APU available to start? Yes, it is, and it's already started. So when the APU is available, we put the APU on the bus. All right, now we are flying on command A. If I will put the generator, APU generator on the bus, my autopilot will disconnect because it's on the same side as the generator I want to use. So what we do here is just switch to command B. Now you can put your generator on the bus, and now you can take back the control of the autopilot on command A. Right, this is done. Then what next? Balance fuel as needed. All right, we can do that. We can see already that we have an unbalance. So to do that, always start by opening your crossfeed. And then we turn off the 2 pumps where we have less fuel. So in that case, the right side. And that will trigger, of course, a master caution fuel that we can acknowledge. Good. Next. Transponder mode TA only. This is to prevent a TCAS command that we could not follow. Now we'll reduce my thrust as we are maintaining 7,000 feet. We are aiming for around 220 knots. So when you reduce your thrust, you can see that we have a yaw movement again, of course. So every time you change your thrust, you need to trim the aircraft. As easy as that. And I will show you later on a nice way to find out what thrust you need on that aircraft. So let's enter the holding in SimBrief. So that's done already and out of the way. So hold, SimBrief, and it's a 224 right turn, execute. All right, the hold is there and it's activated.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, you are number 1 for the approach. Maintain the holding at SimBrief and report ready for the approach.
Roger, we'll hold at SimBrief and we'll report ready for the approach. Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, so we are on the way to SimBrief. Transponder is set to TA only. What else we have to do? Isolation valve switch to auto whenever the fire is extinguished. So now we didn't have any fire, so I can go back to auto so that we have air on both pack. And finally, planned to land at the nearest suitable airport. All right, so that's the end of the QRH for engine fire, severe separation, or damage. So what we're gonna do now is the after takeoff. So after takeoff flow, lights off. I will keep the ignition on the good engine to continuous, auto brake to off, and gear to off. That's the after takeoff checklist. Now something I wanted to show you is about the thrust that you need on that aircraft to fly single engine. So if we look at our weight right now, we have 64.3 tons. That works in tons. If you're flying in pounds, unfortunately, that's not gonna work. But if you're flying in pounds, in kilos, sorry, it's very easy to do that. You take your weight, you had 10, so that will be 74.3. So let's round it up to 75, and you set 75 on your N1. On the good engine. That will give you always a nice speed, and that works all the way to final approach. And I will try to demonstrate that today to you. So we set around gross weight plus 10. All right, now that this is done, we are in the holding pattern. We need to brief our cabin crew that we have a problem, give them a NITS briefing, that we are flying back to Geneva, that they have around 10 minutes. Luckily for us, the passengers are still seated, the seatbelt sign is on, so the cabin will be ready almost immediately. The good thing is that they didn't stand up, they didn't start any service. So at least when we advise the cabin crew now, they can get mentally prepared for a possible evacuation, even though the fire, we never had in fire, and one engine landing is something that we practice a lot, so it should not be an issue, but we still tell them that it might end up in an evacuation. All right, good. So let's prepare the approach. So before we go for the one engine landing, inoperative landing checklist on the Boeing 737, we can start to prepare by heart what we know about this kind of procedure. So we'll set the auto brake to 2. Runway in Geneva is quite long. Then I'm going to set the approach. So first of all, we need to update the MCDFMS. So route page, my destination is Zurich. I will change it to Geneva and execute. Now the aircraft knows that we are going to Geneva. Next thing we want to do, set the approach. ILS 22, execute. So right now we have our ILS that comes right there. You can see petal. So I will take petal and I will put it just after Saint-Pré in the holding. So now when we are clear for the approach, we can fly Saint-Pré to petal and join the ILS runway 22. Speeds, we are going to fly with flaps 15. So what I'm doing now, I'm doing it by heart as I know the aircraft, and then the checklist will be used to make sure we didn't screw it up and we didn't forget anything. So here, flap inhibit, and I will select flaps 15 for landing, and the speeds are set. Next thing we want to do is set our nav setting for the ILS runway 22. So ILS is active on nav 1. The course should be 224 from before. And here, as we are in the holding, we can keep for the time being Saint-Pré on COM2 and have the ILS on standby. Right, performance-wise, we don't have an EFB on the MSFS 737, but for a 4,000 meters runway like in Geneva, we have no issue to land the 737. All right, so let's bring the charts and have a look that we did everything correctly for this approach. All right, so let's do a quick brief. So we are in Geneva right now in the holding pattern for the ILS runway 22, MSA 7,000 feet, which we are right now. We're expecting a 3 degrees descent, glide from 17.7 miles. Then we will start a 3 degrees descent down to the minimum, which is 1565. So 1565. So this is a barrow minimum. So let's do that. 1565. I always wondered, guys, if there is a way to go faster on the minimum here. Maybe you can guide me in the description, in the section down below, how to go faster. Because if we have a minimum at 9,000 feet on high altitude airport, it will take for ages. All right, so 1565, almost there. And you see what I was telling you about the gross weight plus 10, the speed is nicely maintained and my aircraft is trimmed properly. So now you can fly with the autopilot, with an engine failure, without any issue. All right, let's go for what we said. So 1565. Here we go. Minimum is set. In case of go around, we will brief the tower that we would like to fly straight ahead 6 miles left onto Saint-Pré and climb to 7,000 feet to be above the cloud and in MSA, above MSA. If we land, we're going to stop on the runway using 1 reversers, and then we'll assess the situation and brief the cabin crew if the situation is normal or if we need to evacuate the aircraft. Good. This is briefed. Runway is long enough. We have the nav setting. Everything is done. So now what we will do, we will bring the 1 engine inoperative landing checklist procedure. So let's have a look at that procedure. Okay, the landing must be made with flaps 15. So plan for a flaps 15 landing. This is already known and we have set the VREF 15. There is no icing condition, so no need to worry about that. On point 3, it's check the non-normal condition configuration landing distance table. So we know that it is good for us. Maintain VREF 15 plus wind additive. So here the wind is crosswind mainly, so we don't have a lot of headwind. So we are just going to have VREF 15 plus 5 knots, which is the minimum wind additive. And when engine anti-ice is needed, use the operative engine only. We don't have any problem with the anti-ice today. Checklist is complete except the differ items. So let's go in the differ items. The descent checklist, pressurization, landing altitude, set. So Zurich and Geneva were the same altitude, so it's already set. Now, one thing here you can see that we still have our cruising altitude of 16,000 feet. If I start the descent now, I'm going to have an off-schedule descent light and a master caution. So it is not a problem because the aircraft is in an abort mode. He knows that we are going back to Geneva. But if you want to avoid this disturbance, just set your cruise altitude to your current altitude. And now you will not have any master caution. So the pressurization is set. Recall, always check that. Make sure that we didn't screw up electrical. It's because of the generator of the engine that is failed. And the fuel, it's because we are right now transferring fuel, not we are burning fuel from the left tank. That's what's happening right now. So we are burning the fuel only from that tank. And as you can see, the right tank is still at 2.4, as same figure as when we started the balancing. So this is all good. We checked the recall. The auto brake is 2, and the landing data, we have VRF flaps 15, 155, and flaps 15 for landing. Minimum is 1565. Approach briefing is completed. Let's go for the next one, which is the additional go-around thrust, not required here. Then we will go for the go-around procedure review. So in case we go around, we're going to use flaps 1. So it's going to be push toggle button, set go-around thrust, then flaps 1, positive rate, gear up, and then no accelerations below 1,000 feet. Then we go flaps up speed, clean up the aircraft, and go 6 miles left on Saint-Pré, and we have enough fuel to do another approach. All right, so this is done. I will synchronize here the heading inbound to 24 as we are almost ready to start our approach. So this is done. Then we have approach checklist altimeters. So 908 reading 7,000 feet on both sides. That's fine. Additional different item, ground proximity flap inhibit switch to flap inhibit. This is done. And the landing checklist is to go. All right, I think we are ready for the approach. Let's call Geneva. Geneva, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. We are ready for the approach.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, Roger. Proceed direct to Saint-Pré, descend 6,000 feet, and you are cleared for the ILS runway 22. For information, latest RVR 700 meters.
Roger, descend 6,000 feet, clear ILS runway 22, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. 6,000 feet. We are descending 6,000 feet because the localizer, the glide slope, in MSFS is not shown before about 17.7 miles on the ILS. So this is to prevent any problem. This is why ATC tell us to descend to 7,000 feet. All right, so descending vertical speed, it's always a good mode to use vertical speed because you don't need to change your thrust. If you go level change, then you will have to retard or to reduce your thrust to let the aircraft descend if you go vertical speed. You keep your thrust, therefore you keep your very nice balanced flight here. You are nicely configured and trimmed. All right, we are going down. We are clear for the approach. So let's arm right now the localizer. And we have localizer captured. We can see the glide slope. And I will show you what I meant about the thrust setting on that aircraft. Now my aircraft is properly trimmed, as you can see. My speed is at up. The glide slope is coming around 1 dot. So now we can arm the approach. Glide slope is armed, and I'm going to use flaps 1. But I'm not gonna touch anything on my thrust. My thrust is still 64 plus 10. Let's put it 74. That's it. And now I'm going to reduce to flaps 1. Bug 1. Flaps are 1. Now I go flaps 5. And I will bug 5. Now you can see the speed will be dropping slowly. We've got the glide slope. So once you are there, just put your gear down. About 1 dot before, gear down, and do the item. Sorry, that one. Good. And now, once we have glide slope captured, flaps 15. Set the approach, 160 knots. Set missed approach altitude, 7,000 feet. All right, so now that this is done, nothing to worry. We have our plus 10. The speed is dropping, and the aircraft is going down on the ILS. Now, if your speed ends up to be a little bit high, do very small correction. There is no need to do overcorrection. As long as you are safe, it is better to have 5-10 knots extra and a very nicely configured and stable aircraft than fighting with the speed with a lot of thrust changes, and then you have to fight with your rudder. So right now I have a perfect rudder setting with the trim. The aircraft is going down, and you can see that my speed is slowly reducing toward my 160 knots that I want on short final. But right now, nothing to worry, and be configured early, because then it gives you the time to have a perfect stabilized approach. All right, so let's do the landing checklist. So engine start switches on the operative engine to continuous. Done. Speed brake, armed, landing gear, down, flaps, 15 green lights. Perfect. Now we need to stop the transfer, the fuel cross feed. So always start by putting the pump back on, and then close your cross feed. Perfect. So now we should be transferred very soon to the tower frequency. My first officer will take the ILS as well. So we have a backup. And we are continuing this long approach in Geneva. This is a 17 miles final. And it's quite cloudy today. RVRs was reported at 700 meters. So we will hopefully see the runway, I hope, at our Cat 1 minimum. I think they didn't transfer us to the tower yet. How many miles we are? 9 miles. Okay, I will still wait. I didn't hear the transmission, maybe. Let's see. See, the speed is going nicely to my V approach plus 10 knots.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee for landing clearance, contact tower 118.7, safe landing.
1187 Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, thank you, bye-bye. All right, 1187. Tower hello again, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, we're established on 227 miles.
Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee, hello again. Wind 170 at 15 knots. Runway 22, clear to land. RVR touchdown 650, midpoint 700, endpoint 700.
Clear to land, runway 22, Swiss 3 Hotel Yankee. All right, RVR is good for the approach. I set the lights, taxi lights on with the landing clearance. That's as a reminder. Now you see my speed is still a little bit high, so I will reduce by 2 or 3 N1, not more than that. When you do that, check your skid indicator to see that you are still okay, or trim the aircraft very softly, and now the speed will decrease again slowly. You have to give time to the aircraft. Do not rush when you are in single engine. Otherwise, you unstabilize your whole approach. So I reduced a little bit more, now 72.5. I'm still perfectly trim, and the speed will slowly decrease. And as I told you, if I'm crossing the threshold with 165, I don't really care, because I'm so stable. I don't want now to reduce the speed quickly and unstabilize the flight at 1000 feet AGL. All right, so let's concentrate on that landing, see if we can see the runway. We have done everything. Landing clearance is received, and the landing checklist was completed. 1000 stabilized. Let's reduce another 1% on N1. And check that we are perfectly good on the skid indicator. See, the speed is going off very slowly. That's perfect. 500 feet. Checked. Approach light in sight.
300. Approaching minimum.
Checked.
Minimum.
Continue. Landing. Autopilot off.
100. Sync rate. Sync rate. 20. 10.
Okay. Speed brake up. 1 reverses. Manual braking. Long runway, so we don't need to brake aggressively. And we will stop. Take the second to the left. No rush. But as I told you, we always stop on the runway to advise our cabin crew. Normally, when you declare an emergency, you will have the fire brigade coming to the aircraft as well. So they can assess your aircraft, make sure that everything looks good before letting you taxi the airplane to the gate. So the best thing to do right now will be to stop your aircraft right there next to an exit.
Back in Geneva, the scenario is over. If you try another takeoff, for sure you're not going to get the same failure. Hope you liked it. Any comments or questions, please head up to the forum. Thank you, and as always, stay safe. Bye-bye.
All right, that was the automatic recorded announcements of the scenario. So I just stopped the aircraft here on the runway. I set the brake, and I will call the cabin crew, attention crew at station. So now the crew, they know that they have to look outside, make sure they can use the exits that here next to their doors. And here the pilots, we will start looking at the aircraft itself. So we had an engine failure under control. If you have the brake indication on 737, not all the 737 will have the brake temperature. So that's as well very important if you're landing with an heavy aircraft. Your brakes can be very hot and might in fact get stuck, and then the aircraft will not move. One of them or several of them, you might have a tire burst. So here the fire brigade that will be here will assess the aircraft for you. And if everything looks good, like now, I have brakes that are normals, my engines is secured, it's off, I will taxi the aircraft by myself to the gate. So I will tell the fire brigade that everything is good, and then I will call attention crew, stay operation normal. And now the cabin crew, they know. Sorry, we have to go on PA to do that. So that was not this one here, and cabin crew operation normal. So when this is done, now they know that they can expect a normal taxi, normal procedure. We inform ATC, vacate the runway, and proceed to the gate they give us. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Any question or comment, please drop it in the forum or in the section down below. And stay safe as always, and please subscribe to the channel. Thank you. See you next time for another video. Bye-bye.